Keshabadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagatisha Hare Jai Jagatisha Hare Jai Jagatisha Hare. Avagada Kamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Stringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringam Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagatisha Hare Jai Jagatisha Hare Jai Jagatisha Hare. Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagatisha Hare Jai Jagatisha Hare Jai Jagatisha Hare. Oh, Nrsimhadev ki, Prahlad Maharaj ki.
Gopi Parana Dhana Madana Manohara Gopi Parana Dhana Madana Manohara Kaliyada Mana Vidhana Kaliyada Mana Vidhana Amala Harinam Amiya Vilasa Amala Harinam Amiya Vilasa Vipina Puranadara Navinaya Garabara Vamsi Badana Subhasa Vipina Puranadara Navina Nagarabara Vamsi Badana Subhasa Braja Janapalana Surakulanasana Braja Janapalana Surakulanasana Nanda Godhana Rakhavala Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Sundarananda Gopala Sundarananda Gopala Yamuna Tatachara Gopi Basanahara Yamuna Tatachara Gopi Basanahara Rasa Rasika Kripa Moya Rasa Rasika Kripa Moya Shri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natavara Shri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natavara Bhakati Vinodashraya Bhakati Vinodashraya Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Om He Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadhamayam Dadati Swapadhantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrajatam Sahaganha Ragunhatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padhan Sahaganha Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindan Vaneshwari Vishapanu Sute Devi Pranamhami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Hevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Reading Bhagavad Gita as it is. We'll be starting on chapter 6. Text 36. This chapter is entitled Sankhya Yoga. Okay. Asamyatatmanha yogo dushprapa hitime matihi vashyatmanha tu yatata shakyo vaptum upayataha. Translation. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work. But he whose mind is controlled and who strives by right means is assured of success. That is my opinion. Text 37. Arjuna uvacha ayati sharayo peto yogach chalitam hanasaha aprapya yoga samsiddhim kam gatim krishna gacchati. Translation. Arjuna said, what is the destination of the man of faith who does not persevere, who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism. Text 38. Kachchinho baya vibrashtash chinha brahmhivanhashyati apratishto mahabaho vimhudho brahmanhapati. Translation. O mighty armed Krishna, does not such a man, being deviated from the path of transcendence, perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere? Text 39. Etan me samshayam Krishna chetum harhasya sheshataha twadhanya samshayasyasya chetana hyupapadyate. Translation. This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for yourself, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. But for yourself, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. Text 40. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Parta Naiveha Namutra Vinhashastasya Vidyate Nahi Kalyana Kritkashchit Durgatim Tata Kachchiti. Translation. The Blessed Lord said, Son of Pritha, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. Text 41. Prapya punya kritam lokam ushitva shashvati samaha shuchinam shrimatam gehe yoga brashto vijayate. Take it a little slower on the verses so I can pronounce them properly. Translation. The unsuccessful yogi, after many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people, or into a family of rich aristocracy. Text 42. Atava yoginam heva kule bhavati dhimatam etadi durlabhataram etadi durlabhataram loke janmayad idrisham. Translation. Or if he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom, verily such a birth is rare in this world. Text 43. Tatratam buddhi samyogam labhate parvradehikam yatate cha tato bhuya samsidhau kurunandanha. Translation. On taking such a birth, he again revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success, O son of Kuru. Text 44. Purvabhyasena tenaiva hriyate hyavashopi saha jigyasur hapi yogasya shabda brahmati vartate. Translation. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles, even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist striving for yoga stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. Text 45. Prayatna dhyatamhanastu yogi samshurakil bishaha aneka janma samsiddhis tato yati parham gatim. Translation. But when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contaminations, then ultimately, after many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. We'll read one more verse, verse 46. Tapasvibhyo diko yogi jnanibhyo matodikaha karmibhyascha diko yogi tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. Translation. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fruitive worker. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi. Hare Krishna. We'll go back to text 36. It's really interesting that when I sit to give class, when I go to recite the verses, I just start going so quickly. I need to be a little bit more conscious about my pronunciation, because as we're vibrating these shlokas, well, it's given by this Roman transliteration, we can actually vibrate the exact same syllables that Krishna and Arjuna spoke, also reverberated 5,000 years ago. So it's a great opportunity to get absorbed in the text. If anyone knows my day-to-day, I spend a little bit of time with shlokas, and I find a great relief. The mind is so busy, as we're hearing, actually, the verse that we ended with yesterday. Asamshayo, what was it? Yeah, asamshayam mahabaho manho dhyanigraham chalam. Chalam, the mind is very restless. Very difficult to curb the restless mind, right? Manho dhyanigraham chalam. Durnigraham, difficult to curb. Chalam, flickering. Abhyasena, by practice. By practice and by detachment, one can curb the restless mind. Of course, this is the context of that verse is in regards to Sankhya Yoga, right? Not artificially conquering the mind, but doing so through mechanical means of controlling the breath, going to a nice place of solitude, as Jambavati Sutta Prabhu said last night, very elaborately. It's not so easy in today's world as we go to isolate ourselves. For starters, there are so many dangers that face us in the wilderness. But of the most dangers, probably, of all the poisonous snakes and all the vicious lions and all the rest, what's more potentially poisonous is neglecting the opportunity we have for devotee association and taking the association from the conditioned mind. If we're not really led from within by the Supersoul, then yes, that'd be nice. Thank you. Well, then we face a great task ahead of us to control that restless mind all by ourselves. So we'll start with text 36 here as we learn about the most ideal kind of yogi. Translation: for one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work, but he whose mind is controlled and who strives by the right means is assured of success. That is my opinion. It's nice to have the opinion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's what's so great about Bhagavad Gita, is that Krishna himself is speaking directly, and we completely squash all need for speculative endeavor. No need to speculate when you have the prime origin of all that is, the cause of all causes, telling you exactly what it is that we should be doing, and how to do it, and the result of such endeavor. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Supreme Personality of Godhead declares that one who does not accept the proper treatment to detach the mind from material engagement can hardly achieve success in self-realization. Trying to practice yoga while engaging the mind in material enjoyment is like trying to ignite a fire while pouring water on it. Similarly, yoga practice without mental control is a waste of time. Such a show of yoga practice may be materially lucrative, but it is useless as far as spiritual realization is concerned. Therefore, the mind must be controlled by engaging it constantly in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Unless one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, he cannot steadily control the mind. A Krishna conscious person easily achieves the result of yoga practice without separate endeavor. But a yoga practitioner cannot achieve success without becoming Krishna conscious. Haribol. So let's see. Trying to practice yoga while engaging the mind in material enjoyment is like trying to ignite a fire while pouring water on it. Similarly, yoga practice without mental control is a waste of time. Such a show of yoga practice may be materially lucrative, but it is useless as far as spiritual realization is concerned. Chapter 2 of the first canto, we hear all about the supreme occupation, which is all about rendering loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service is prescribed to be uninterrupted and unmotivated, and that's how we completely satisfy the self. And by doing so, on the discussion of detachment, that is by remembrance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By rendering service to Him, one immediately acquires causeless detachment from this world. Jnanam chayata haitukam. So, what good is such a show of yoga practice if it's not aimed at really understanding the goal of all yoga in the first place? Dharma swanushthatapum sam vishvaksena katasuya natpada yadyadiratim shrama eva hi kevalam. Shrama eva hi kevalam. Shrama eva hi kevalam. Useless knowledge. It's entirely, most certainly, useless endeavor if that activity which we put forward in our life is not bringing about attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. So we see this a lot in today's world, both with the karmis and the gyanis. And we see that actually, depending on where they're at and the activities that they're upholding, they simply just bind themselves further to this world. Because actually any work outside the service of Vishnu is that, it's binding. We hear that in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, text 9. So, by such a show of yoga practice, mystic powers that one might accumulate, they may even be able to gain control over some of the facilities of material nature. That's there, but they still can't eradicate that envy within their heart that's put them into this whole predicament in the first place. So no matter how strong one is materially, there's still lust, there's still greed, there's still anger, there's still at least a subtle desire to lord it over the facilities of material nature. And typically that's why one seeks such mystic powers. For the devotee, those come about naturally. He doesn't have to ask for them, and nor does he misuse them. So, as we approach Krishna, there's no loss. He's giving us everything that we need. We hear this morning in Bhagavatam how when Lord Bor, Lord Varaha, went down into the Garbhodaka ocean, he lifted up the earth, right? Which is all of Buloka, right? Had fallen down into the Garbodak Ocean. And with his tusks, as a boar does, as a boar picks up dirty things or objects from dirty places, he has great tusks that allow him to do that. The Lord incarnated himself, or expanded himself in the form of a boar, for this pastime of picking the earth up from the lowest part of the universe and bringing it back to its proper place. And he did so as the goddess of the earth, who I believe is called Bhumi, right? Yeah, she was calling out, pretty much, crying out for his help. He reciprocates according to the degree that we approach him. We actually later come to find out that he marries her in that pastime. So this is the great effect of our surrender to the Lord, is that he annihilates all sinful reactions. Therefore, there's no cause for fear. As we take one step towards him, he takes so many more towards us. So surrender is found in 6 stages, namely the 6 principles of surrender. Starting with accepting what is favorable. Accepting what is favorable for our devotional service. This is imperative. This is absolutely imperative. Number 2, rejecting what is unfavorable. Right? Number 3, it goes on, understanding that the Lord, there's no cause to doubt the Lord. He's the maintainer in all respects, in all regards. And like that, this is the path to doing the needful, to serving Krishna as he desires. That is the key to finding ourselves in shelter, is that there's a certain level of understanding where we get excited about devotional service and we want to help out how we think we should. We want to be engaged in the ways that we think are in line with our nature. And that's very nice. That's certainly better than the complete ignorance of the Lord and his devotees and service to his mission. But a higher principle is doing the needful. And in spite of what we think ourselves capable of, or the areas that we think we might be worthy of serving in, it's just simply taking a submissive service attitude and filling that void that's there within whatever setting we are in, whether it's the temple, whether it's at our house or our job, or in every step of our life we can engage ourselves in devotional service, which is not something to be found in any other kind of yoga practice. I mean, what other kind of yogi can get married, can have some sort of prescribed sex life that's not found in any other kind of yoga practice, can have a family, can have a house, can be somewhat engaged in material endeavors, and still become purified. That's not found anywhere else. So if that's favorable for our devotional service, then sure, that's there. And it's not to say that essentially the basis of our Krishna consciousness movement is to rid ourselves of such material attachment. But we can take a dose, a small dose of it, and like this we kind of wean ourselves off of it. That's the idea, is not that we stay within that ashram forever, but that we do work in that ashram, we serve in the way that we've been recommended to by the spiritual master. He sees if one is qualified for that ashram or not. He asks us to go forward in that ashram until further prescription is needed, like that. But it's never that we just become content with where we're at within the realm of householder life. In fact, I was listening to Jayadvaita Swami, and someone asked him a question: how does a grihastha make advancement? and he said very cheekily that he makes advancement by taking Vanaprast. So we have to remember that the sex life is pretty much the enemy of our whole movement. It's the culmination of all of our material desires. This Indriyani Priti, right? This sense gratification, separate from the Lord. So, like anything that's prescribed or licensed, it's only done so because it's dangerous. We go to the liquor store, and we see that you have to be a certain age, there are certain qualifications you must need to purchase liquor over the counter. That's not because it's healthy for you. They have restrictions put in place because it's unhealthy for you. It's actually poison. So, like that, you can see where I'm going. But when we're so, steeped into that mode of wanting those things for ourselves, and having a little bit of it can actually move us forward in one way. I'm getting way off track here, so let's pick back up on text 37. Okay. Prabhu? So people online can read along. Text 37. Arjuna said, "What is the destination of the man of faith who does not persevere, who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness, and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism?" Purport. The path of self-realization, or mysticism, is described in the Bhagavad Gita. The basic principle of self-realization is knowledge that the living entity is not this material body, but that he is different from it, and that his happiness is in eternal life, bliss and knowledge. These are transcendental, beyond both body and mind. Self-realization is sought by the path of knowledge, the practice of the Eightfold System, or by Bhakti Yoga. In each of these processes, one has to realize the constitutional position of the living entity, his relationship with God, and the activities whereby he can re-establish the lost link and achieve the highest perfectional stage of Krishna consciousness. Following any kind of the above-mentioned three methods, one is sure to reach the supreme goal sooner or later. This was asserted by the Lord in the second chapter. Even a little endeavor on the transcendental path offers a great hope for deliverance. Out of these three methods, the path of Bhakti Yoga is especially suitable for this age because it is the most direct method of God realization. To be doubly assured, Arjuna is asking Lord Krishna to confirm his former statement. One may sincerely accept the path of self-realization, but the process of cultivation of knowledge and the practice of the Eightfold Yoga system are generally very difficult for this age. Therefore, one may fail for many reasons. First of all, in the process, to pursue the transcendental path is more or less to declare war on illusory energy. Consequently, whenever a person tries to escape the clutches of the illusory energy, she tries to defeat the practitioner by various allurements. A conditioned soul is already in modes of material energy, and there is every chance of being allured again, even while performing transcendental disciplines. This is called yogat chalitam ha, deviation from the transcendental path. Arjuna is inquisitive to know the results of deviation from the path of self-realization. Just one point as we hear that declaring war, I liked that, declaring war on the illusory energy. This is the process of self-realization. Where is this? Yeah, to pursue the transcendental path is more or less to declare war on illusory energy. And one might ask, well, how can you work without motivations and without interruptions? That's the only way to satisfy myself. How could I ever possibly achieve that when I'm so conditioned, I'm so fallen? It's done through the association of the devotees. That's the most purifying process, is to gather with the devotees and chant the holy name. As there's a verse stated in 11th canto, Parasparat nukatanam pavanam bhagavadyashaha mito ratir mitastushtir nivritim mita atmanaha. Mito ratir mitastushtir. That there's mutual happiness and mutual satisfaction by the gathering with the devotees to chant the holy name of the Lord. And actually this process is most purifying, that verse says. Because as one endeavors to create loving friendships with the devotees, as that happiness, that satisfaction, which is mutually shared, develops, one is able to cut ties from the very cause of all suffering, which is material attachment. So this is, that's most purifying. Gathering, in this age at least, gathering to chant the holy name. As we do so, no envy. Hare Krishna. And actually, as we do Sankirtan with the devotees, at least temporarily, at least while it's going on, no envy. If we're doing so consciously, with an open heart, then actually no envy can live for as long as we're doing that activity. Therefore, everything that Prabhupada has given us is Sankirtan. And if we just approach it with gratitude, with the mindset that, I can't believe that this has been offered to me. This is the solution to all my problems. And here it is given to me in so many different forms that I can go all day, whether it's taking prasadam, or learning mridanga, or doing book distribution. You name it, there are so many different ways to serve the Lord. And all of them are Sankirtan, actually. Everything is preaching in this movement. Oftentimes we just think of preaching in terms of who's giving the class, or who's doing book distribution, or those kinds of roles. But actually cutting the grass is preaching. Washing the dishes is preaching. In the same way that the head of the body sends its directions to the leg and is pretty much rendered useless without the leg, so is all kinds of service absolute, in the sense that they all lead to the greater cause, the greater push to bring this movement forward into the hearts of everyone in society. To do so, we must be conscious. Before we can become Krishna conscious, we must be conscious. We must consciously decide that, okay, I'm not happy. I'm not happy without Krishna. I'm not happy without the devotees. And then we must, with great determination, not put our feet down. When you're in a war, you might feel like you want to put your feet up. You've had a hard day. People were shooting at you. Then more than ever, you have to be on guard. You have to continue to understand the position that you're in. And you're in the thick of it. And there's danger at every step. And it's not a time to get complacent. It's not a time to get comfortable. Because no matter how long you're here, which in our case is not long, you're going to have to leave. You're going to have to leave. And at that last moment, you're going to want to make sure that you gave it everything that you could. At that last moment of death, antakale ta purusha agate gata sarvashaha chendyara sangha shastrena spriham dehe nuye chitam. At that last moment of death, one should be bold enough not to be afraid of death, but to cut off all attachment to the material body and everything pertaining to it and all desires thereof. Think about that. At that moment of death, no one's going to be able to help you. Not your mom or dad or your friend or your husband or wife. The only person that's going to be able to help you is Guru and Krishna. And depending on the practice that you put in, the spiritual discipline, how seriously you approached that responsibility, well, it'll reflect in the results of that which becomes of us, where we go. So it's a bit of a wake-up call reading these books that Prabhupada has given us, and we need to be woken up. Utishtata jagrita prapyam varanibodhata kshurasya dhara nishita duratyaya dogham patos tat kavayo vedanti. Wake up, get up. This human form of life is very, very valuable. This is from the Katha Upanishad, and it's said that spiritual life is like a razor's edge. A razor can give you a very nice, clean-cut shave. You look very nice. One wrong move, though, with a very sharp razor, it's no good. You have blood everywhere. Similarly, we have to approach our spiritual life as such. And the learned man does that. Kavayo Vedanti. He doesn't take this knowledge for granted. He's eager to hear it, and he's eager to practice it, put it into practice. It's one thing to have theoretical knowledge, it's another thing to have practical knowledge, realized knowledge. So back to the fact that this is a war that we're in. To declare war on the illusory energy, we hear that the enemy is actually lust, and it sits in the senses, indriyani manobuddhir, the senses, the mind, the intelligence. Asyadishtam na ushite. Etayar vimohayatesha jnanam avrityadehinam. It's blinded the living entity, it's bewildered him. Our intelligence, which is essentially the next door neighbor to the soul, it's become covered over, and therefore it's operating on faulty information, thinking that the information that it has within itself is enough to actually bring us happiness, but there's something missing, and no matter how long we try to find happiness with that kind of contaminated, lustful intelligence, there's going to be no real satisfaction there. In fact, everything turns to anger from there to delusion, and so on until we're tossed back into the sea of material energy. But understand that lust is the enemy, and curbing that propensity to lust after actually that which is not ours. So I had another point to make there. It escaped me. Any questions? It's about time to wrap it up. Okay, we'll end there. Tomorrow will be text 40. What was it? 47. Okay. Thank you for listening to Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees.